Good morning. This is Kathy for Getting Chatty with Kathy, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. It is so nice that spring is finally full in force. We're having plus 17 degree days now. The sun is like actually up when you're getting up in the morning. When you go to bed, it's actually just dark for a little while. My goodness, it's like even though it's dusty and kind of like that, like mid-season of a season, I don't mind. Like, I'm just happy I don't have to put a winter jacket on anymore. Sorry for that ramble. I have some wonderful ladies on the show today. I met them about, I'd say, half a year to a year ago. We were actually, all three of us were going to RWN, and we got to know each other by volunteering our time. And it's been a wonderful experience getting to know both of them. So I would like to introduce Sparks of Healing. I have Patricia here, and I also have Keely from KDK. So I thought today, because we're such chatterbugs, we're going to talk way more than the 27 minutes. So we've already committed ourselves. We are going to do this as a two-part. The first part, I would love you guys to hear more about Patricia. She's going to talk a bit about hypnosis, that sort of thing. And then I'm going to have Keely jump in maybe for the second half, where she can talk more about her KDK. And we will try not to giggle, and we will talk slowly and all that sort of stuff.
Talk about paraghoul, paranormal.
It's going to be really fun. We have we have the coolest people in Saskatchewan. Do you think it's because we stay indoors so long that we have to get creative with our own lives versus like what's going on around us?
Oh, maybe because of the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Our winters are so awful.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. It does create a good place for that.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, Patricia.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can we drill you first?
Absolutely.
All right. So I think that this is your second time on the show. So the first time when Patricia was here, we talked a little bit about a bunch of different treatments that you can give people to bring them, a sense of clarity or whatnot. And today we're going to dive a little deeper on one of those topics, and it's hypnosis. And we're going to really kind of talk about all of the elements and why you enjoy doing that with your peeps.
Mm-hmm.
How does that sound?
Sounds wonderful.
All right. So what do you want to tell us first?
Well, maybe I'll tell you how I got started on this journey. So I was taking a class called Soul Alignment. And after the first class, my husband, who I never knew had any weird and wonderful attribute, well, he's got lots of wonderful attributes, but I didn't know he was as weird as I.
Which is perfect, because she might have like a whole thing about the weird and wonderful things of her life.
I do. I have a Substack, and I call it my weird and wonderful life. That's a writer's
awesome.
blog. Yeah. Anyways, so after the first class, he drew me this symbol, and he goes, "I'm supposed to give this to you. They gave it to me," and I'm like, "Who's they?" And he goes, "Well, sometimes, I get symbols for people, and I draw them, and I give them to them." And I'm like, "Okay, we've known each other for 3 years now, and this is news to me." Anyways, so I had this symbol. I looked everywhere. I reached out to all my weird and spiritual friends. Nobody had a clue. Didn't mean anything to anybody. Couldn't find it online. So the third element of this class, this soul alignment class, we were doing past life regression. So I took this symbol with me. And so the girl that I was working with, I said, I think this is from a past life, and I would like to know what life this came from. So she took me into the first life. Did the symbol belong here? No.
Okay, hold on. You just jumped a million steps there. So she took you into the first life. How does one get taken to their first life?
Okay, so hypnosis is the beginning of hypnosis. Getting someone into trance is very much like meditation. So we take you into deep meditation. You have to trust your hypnotist. You have to trust your higher self to guide you to where you need to go, to see the things that you need to see. So that's basically it. We take each other into a meditative state. When it comes to past life hypnosis, oftentimes the person will take you to a garden with several doors or a hallway with several doors, and you choose the door that you want to open.
Okay, so that's what she did with you.
Yeah, mine was kind of like a Grecian garden with marble stones. Yeah, I know, right? And a lot of plants, and then these arching gateways with these big wooden doors, right up your alley with the whole old and weird stuff, Keely. Yeah. And so I opened the first door, and I won't go through all of them for the sake of time. And no, it didn't belong there. And the second door, no. So the third door, I open it up and step through, and she says, "Look at your feet, and what do you see?" And I said, "Oh, I'm wearing gold sandals, and they lace all the way up to my knees, and I'm wearing a long white gown with gold down the front and gold around the sleeves." And she goes, "Look at your hands, and what do you see?" And I said, "Oh, I have really long fingers, and my hands are white, like not Caucasian, but white." And she goes, "Okay." And I said, "And I have long golden hair, like strawberry red hair, all the way down to my butt." And she goes, "Okay, look around you, and what do you see?" And I said, "Oh, there are children all around me, and I'm their teacher. And I teach them to remember that they are loved, so that when they leave this place, that they travel lightly upon the earth and leave no mark. And when they meet the others, they don't forget that they are loved." And she said, "Does your symbol belong to this place?" And I said, "Yes, it means one voice, one heart. And I teach them through song and through dance, through chanting." And she said, "Okay, that's super cool." And then she said, "I want you to go to the time of your death." Now, you remember that scene in Snow White when she dies and they put her on that marble dais and cover her with flowers? Well, that's what these kids did for me. And they covered me with flowers and poems, and they scarified my symbol on my throat as a sign of respect. And then when I came up from that hypnosis, that past life regression, I had this feeling of being loved, like this just feeling like liquid love was pouring through me. And she said to me, "Where were you? Where was that time?" And I said, Lemuria? Well, at the time, I had no freaking clue what Mu. I'd never heard of Mu. I'd never heard of Lemuria. I'd heard of Atlantis because, I grew up in the 80s, Man from Atlantis and all that stuff. But I'd never heard of these places. So it was really bizarre and life-changing.
And then you can start going down that rabbit hole, and it's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you have past life regression. It left you with a feeling of love. It left you feeling like, wanting more, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do with that?
Well, and it also left me wanting to have other people have this experience, right?
Be the teacher.
Yeah. So I was already doing Reiki and all of those things. So I started offering only to friends and family. I would take them into past life regression because I had this worry that what if I take you somewhere awful and you've had a bad experience, right?
Yeah.
What if I don't know how to help you and I wasn't properly trained? This was just like a smidgen of training, right? So I was only taking friends and family, and I had to do some training for a different course I was taking. I had to do 20 hours, so I gave 10 friends 2 hours each. And my one girlfriend goes, "Oh, I don't really want it, but can my daughter have it?" And I go, "Sure." So her daughter came, and the first session we did a regular session on her, and she was in Sask Express, and she was doing her first solo where she sang and danced, and she had stage fright. So I worked on that. So then I kept on bugging her, and "Hey, you got to come back for your second one so I can sign off my training, right?" So she came and I said, "So are we working on stage fright?" She's like, "No, you fixed that last time." She said, "I was so full of zen that all the other dancers were gathering around me, and the teacher said, 'What the heck happened to you?' And so I gave her your card."
It's incredible.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
I said, "So would you like to do a past life regression?" She goes, "Sure." So again, she went to several lives, but the one that really was bizarre for me and awesome for her. So I asked her, "Look around you. What do you see?" "Well, there's water." I said, "Okay, well, are you on the beach? Are you in the water?" She's like, "No, there's just water." And I thought, she's 20. She's probably a mermaid. But so I just kept on asking questions, and I said, "Okay, so what are you doing?" She's like, "Well, I'm getting ready to leave this place." I said, "Okay, well, are you taking someone with you?" "Nope, I'm just going by myself." I said, "Okay, will anyone miss you when you're gone?" "Nope, there's no one, there's just me. I said, okay. I said, well, then let's start on this journey. So she starts swimming and then she goes, oh, I'm a sea turtle. Okay, she's a sea turtle. Cool. So she goes about and she sees this new place and all is well. And I bring her out of hypnosis. And being that she's my friend's daughter, I mean, I didn't know what her plans in life were before we began. I just knew I needed to get my 20th hour of practice done. And she said to me, I have a visa to go and work with my boyfriend. We're going to Australia and New Zealand, and then we're going to tour Europe. And she goes, I was so nervous, and now I understand that everything I need I have with me, and I'll be fine.
Oh, that is so powerful.
Yeah, isn't it? And so then she said to me, I know you only do this for friends and family, but seriously, you need to be offering this to everyone. So because of her, then I found Heather Rodriguez, Hypno Heather, took her class in January of 2018 to get certified in the National Guild of Hypnotists. So then that allows me to do, the stop smoking, lose weight, anxiety.
So they have actually like an association that tells people.
We have a guild.
A guild?
Like Harry Potter.
But that's really neat. So is it like a kind of like we promise we won't do harm to people kind of stuff?
Yes.
That's wonderful. So if you're looking for a hypnotherapist, you probably want to look for somebody that's part of the guild.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I do have to clarify, in Saskatchewan, we can call ourselves hypnotherapists if we have hypnosis training, but we don't need to have any medical training. In other provinces, for instance, Ontario, you cannot call yourself a hypnotherapist unless you have a nursing degree or psychology degree. Oh. So we have to be careful with that on an international basis, but sure. Consulting hypnotist is my official title.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, so now you've taken all these courses, you get your 20 hours in.
Yeah.
And you're like, now what? I'm going to figure out how to do this legit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the other really cool thing was in our January class, Heather said, by the way, I'm bringing this lady in from BC. Her name is Inez Simpson, and she teaches something called the Simpson Protocol, where in hypnosis, we're working with the higher self or the superconscious mind. And she goes, she's coming in May. And I'm like, sign me up. Here's my check kind of thing. Okay, e-transfer. I'm cooler than that. So then May, I take this class from Inez Simpson. This protocol is so simple and so easy, and people go so much deeper. It was amazing. And then I met this lady named Jackie Ballog. And I said to Jackie, because she also did past life regression, and I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could use the Simpson protocol, do past life regression, and instead of just going there for curiosity, we could, heal things, cut cords, like all of that stuff. So she goes, yeah, that'd be cool. So 6 months later, she reaches out to me. She goes, I did it. I wrote the protocol to use Simpson protocol to go into past life. So I took her class and I started doing that. Then, do you want me to just keep going?
I'm loving it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, my other girlfriend, she reached out to me and she's like, she had shoulder pain and she'd gone, to every doctor, done physio, the whole 9 yards, couldn't get rid of shoulder pain. And she goes, I wonder if it's a past life thing. So she comes to me for past life. Now, I have to stop for a second. So I'm so curious about all this stuff that there's a lady named Dolores Cannon, and she's written all these books about how she took people to the interlife, to lives between lives. And so I've read like 19 of Dolores's 20 books because the Nostradamus ones were boring, so I didn't finish them. But so I take this woman into past life, right? And I do the thing, look at your feet, what do you see? And she's like, well, I see moccasins and I see bare feet and I see army boots and I see, work boots and I see sandals. And I'm like, she's doing it wrong. My logical mind is like, she's doing it wrong. And my woo-woo mind says, no, she's in lives between lives. And then I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And it's like I have this conversation with myself, and the other self goes, you've read 19 of Dolores's books, so of course you know how to do this. So I took her through. So I said, okay, are you there? Why are you seeing all these different shoes? And she goes, oh, these are all the lives that my shoulder got injured in. I said, okay, are you there alone or with others? Oh, she says, everybody's here. And I said, well, who's everybody? And she goes, well, all my friends and family, they're all here to help me heal. And I said, okay, cool. Is there anyone there who's there to help you? And she goes, oh, yeah, there's a little those little men, and he's got like a bone in his nose, and he's got this big spear. And I go, like an Aborigine? And she goes, yeah, he's an Aboriginal shaman, and he's here to help me. And I go, okay, well, like, what's he going to do? She's like, oh, he's touching you with his stick, his spear. And I go, okay, well, let me know when he's done. I mean, it doesn't get much weirder than my life, I tell you, girls. So fine. So he does his thing. And I said, she goes, okay, he's done. And I said, okay, are you healed? Well, not quite. And I said, okay, is there someone else that's going to be there to help you finish? And she goes, oh, you're supposed to help me. And I said, okay, well, have you forgiven the people who hurt you? And she goes, yeah. And I go, okay, have you forgiven yourself for the part that you played in all these lives? She, oh, no, I haven't forgiven myself. And before I could start helping her forgive herself, she goes, oh, Jesus is here. And I go, okay, Jesus is here. Well, can't think of anyone else better to help you with self-forgiveness. So Jesus did the self-forgiveness.
Go right to the top, right?
Right. Yeah, right. And so then I thought, okay, we're definitely going to be done after this. I mean, what more could there be? So we finish up, and I take her back to the hallway, and I said, is there any place else you want to go, or are we finished? Oh, there's one more door that I would like to peek in. And I said, okay. And so I said, open the door and tell me what you see. And she goes, oh, it's so green. It's so beautiful and green. And I thought, oh, she's in Ireland. And she goes, it's Ireland. And I said, okay, are you going to go inside, or are you just taking a look? I'm there. I'm flying. Well, at this point, anything's possible. So I'm like, are you flying, or are you in a plane? And she goes, no, I'm in a plane. And I said, cool, where are you going? And she throws her arms up in the air in hypnosis, and she goes, anywhere I want, because I'm free now. Yeah. And so her shoulder is like 99% better. Like she said, she's not gonna like be lifting, 100-pound weights over her head, but she's doing better. So just the miracle of hypnosis. So then I reached out to my friend Jackie, and I'm like, guess what? I took someone accidentally to the interlife. Fast forward a few months, she reaches out to me. I wrote a protocol to take them there intentionally. I took her class. I learned how to take people to interlife intentionally, using something very similar to the Simpson protocol. It is talking to superconscious, so working with your higher mind, your soul self. She also taught future life, so future in your current life, and then a different session is future in another life, and now I'm actually certified to teach it. So I can actually teach other people past life, interlife, future life regression. Yeah. So I gave you a lot.
No, that's really interesting. I think that it brings some kind of structure to the chaos of it all. And I think it probably brings you up when I couldn't imagine being in your shoes, or a therapist's shoes, and hearing all this stuff and then, trying to make sense of it with them.
But Kathy, you're the kind of person who actually would be very good at this because you're curious. And really, that's all we have to be is you have to have structure, but you also have to have curiosity, and you have to be able to ask them questions and let them lead. So before a client comes in, I ask them to come with a list of the things they're curious about so that I can guide them. So I call myself a hypnotic tour guide who takes people on a tour of the places they need to go to do the work they need to do. Because I'm really good at talking to superconscious, but you're actually doing the work at a higher level.
Interesting. I know last time I said I was going to do it, and again I'm like, I gotta go do this at some point. I think I'm scared, honestly. For me, I'm sorry. Let's get Kathy in here a little. I'm so sorry. I don't sit well with some things that's happened in my life. For example, I'll go a little deeper. I'll go one onion layer. One. I don't talk to my mom. It's a big thing for me. And I say I'm fine with it, but it's there. Like, it's this thing, and it happened in lots of generations of my family. So, like, we've talked before, and I've said to you, I got this, and you're like, this is the perfect thing to deal with. And I think it's like, you got to get to a spot where you want it. Kind of like any kind of like if you're addicted, like, you really want to actually like cure yourself of your addiction. You won't have to want it. Or maybe I'm addicted to my sadness of this and I need to let it go. I don't know. It's interesting to think about all of the ways that you can help people. I know you were saying that gentlemen come. What do you see a trend right now, Ira?
Well, it's really wonderful that men are getting more open with their emotions, with coming for help. I'm very honored that they trust me. And I've had a couple of friends say to me, you're like everyone's mom. I'm 58, so I'm okay with that, you know?
A young 58, like the youngest.
Aw, thanks.
Seriously.
So yeah, I've had men come to me for Reiki, for sound healing, and for hypnosis. So for hypnosis, there's a variety of things. I've had men come for anxiety, stop smoking, stop drinking, control my anger, more patience. One of the more interesting, and I do have permission from this young person's mom, a young man, his mom reached out to me because his dad passed away at a young age from a drug overdose. And unfortunately, the boy was in the home that morning and heard his dad's labored breathing, but but chose to go to school anyways because he was young. What was he supposed to do, right? And unfortunately, the father passed. And so the young man was having nightmares and guilt. Guilt. And so he came to me, and when we were in the room, he admitted to me that it wasn't just during his sleeping times that he was hearing his dad's breathing. It was also, this is up your alley, Keely. It was also during the day. Sometimes when he was focused on something, he would hear his dad's breathing over his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like haunting him.
Yeah. So one of the first things that I did in the session was to ask superconscious, was this imagination or was the dad actually there? And the dad was actually there. So then I bring up, his whole magical team, like I call in, Christ consciousness, all the heavy hitters, and say, okay, you got to tell dad he's not allowed to contact the son. He made a choice to leave, and he's not allowed to contact the son unless the son wants to contact him. So we did that. We cut some cords. When we cut cords, we don't cut all the cords. We leave the golden cord of love and the silver cord that connects all of us as sparks of light. But we cut all the junk that you accumulate in your lives. So, Kathy, that's what we would do with you and your
I'm just
mom.
hearing this.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, we would leave the love.
Yes.
Because there is love.
Always.
But anyways, back to this gent.
Yep.
So we did all of that, taught him self-hypnosis, and he went on his merry way. It's really funny. The biggest, when I asked people after it's over, how was that for you? It was good, but it was weird. It was really, really weird. And I'm like, yep, that's just how it is. So about a month later, the mom reached out to me like a few days later and said, he's sleeping. He's going out and doing things that teenage boys should be doing. Like, he's living his life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And like, it just warms my heart. Like, that's what I want, right? And so then about a month later, she said, well, now he's missing his dad. And is there something you can do? So took him back into hypnosis and took him to a special place in hypnosis where a loved one who's passed can come and meet. And he had a very healing experience there, and he felt peaceful. And she's since then like written me notes and just said like, thank you so much. Yeah. And she did give me permission to talk about this, like, as long as obviously I didn't identify him. So yeah, it's just such a gift to be able to help people, and men and boys, like, God gifted me with 3 sons. So, I was well prepared to help them out. And like boys, and you have boys too, Keely.
Yeah, I have 3 boys too.
Yeah. And so,
2 girls.
2 girls for you, Kathy.
Yeah. I have a boy dog, though.
And see, I have a girl dog to help even it out.
Yeah, there you go. And so, I had a daughter. She passed away at age 5 from a brain tumor. That's a whole nother story, a whole nother interview. But the boys, like, I've always taught them, boys cry, boys have feelings. And you know what? You have a right to be loved. You have a right to be respected. You have a right to talk about your feelings. You have a right to your tears, right? So when men come into my room, I, just like the women, I point out the Kleenex box is to your right and the garbage can is to your left. And if you have tears, let them come. This is a safe space. And tears, scientists prove that crying, releasing tears changes the biochemistry of your brain. It's healthy for you to let them go. So yeah, I want to create a safe space for men too, to come if they've got anxiety, if they've got whatever's going on, a safe place, or if they want to further explore their spirituality.
Yes.
I've taken a few men to Interlife, and oh my God, just such awesome. And like you were asking me, how is it for you? Well, I'm just grinning from ear to ear because it's so amazing to take people, especially when they meet their guide or they talk to their soul family or their counsel, and they find out how loved they are and how, people think, oh, I'm going to my council of elders, like it's like going to the principal's office. But it's so not. They just love you so much. And they're so proud of you because coming to Earth and experiencing all this range of emotion, it's freaking hard work, man. And they're so proud of you for doing it and for sticking it out and going through all the stuff. It's an honor. I am just like, I'm living my best life doing this work.
You can just feel it radiating from you. It's wonderful to be around.
Thanks.
Oh yeah, I've been having like chills.
Yeah.
During some of this conversation.
So you guys, let's talk about Keely here for a second and how that layers in. Can I ask about, I know you went to see Patricia at one point. How was that experience for you?
Well, it's funny, you're talking about how meeting the council is so serious. And I remember when I met my council, we were laughing because it was like a party. They were like drinking and having fun and
Really?
Yeah. It was every time we went anywhere that had anything to do with my guides or the council, it was just
a party.
Well,
I kind of didn't mind that. That's pretty good.
So we were laughing a lot during my session, even though I don't think I moved. You said I didn't move. I know when you brought me out of it, I was stiff because I didn't move for 2 hours.
Do you remember it?
Oh yeah, very clearly.
Like the whole thing. It's not like it is forgotten.
No, it's like you said, a deep meditation. Mm-hmm. So I was aware the entire time. I still remember most of it, but you did give me a recording, so if I ever need to go back, I've got it.
And you were like the words that were coming out of your mouth while you were doing it. Like, were they just coming from somewhere?
Well, because she would sometimes ask questions, and so then I would just respond to them.
And without thinking.
Without thinking about it, yeah.
Interesting.
And isn't it bizarre, some of the stuff that comes out of your mouth, Keely?
Oh, yeah.
When she's on
I shouldn't be surprised.
or not. I don't know.
For Keely, it's all the time because, she's weird and wonderful as well, but in a ghoulish way. But yeah, no, it's just bizarre, some of the things. And yeah, I do get him an audio recording to absolutely everyone for those sessions because they're 2.5 to 3 hours long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's almost like you're you're awake but in a dream at the same time.
And when you left, was it like filling? Like, did you feel like it was worth your time?
I was so calm, and I think I texted you that I had the best sleep of my life that night. It was just
really
magical sleep. Yeah,
wonderful. Well, you know what? I'm not surprised. Regina has such fantastic people here, and you're definitely one of them. And I think that your guys' energy definitely webs into my world wonderfully. I love it. So, Keely, I know you have some exciting news about a book that's coming up. Why don't you tell us about it? Because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so my first, debut novel is coming out this fall. Very exciting. With Pete's Press, which is a new small press here in Regina, too.
Really?
Which is even more fun.
So he's actually going to press your book into paper copy.
Well,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Another woman-owned
individual.
Another woman-owned business here in Regina. So right now it's with the editors that she found.
Really?
So I'm supposed to be getting it back here this week, I think. So that's exciting.
When do we get our let's go.
I want to read it. Yeah. So what is your book about?
So it's funny. I came up with the idea while reading On Writing by Stephen King, which is on point, I think, since it is, I think we're calling it a supernatural thriller.
Ooh. And Stephen King lives in a small, remote city kind of place.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, so in On Writing, he actually got hit by a truck at one point in his life while out walking. And
Stephen King?
Stephen King did.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now he didn't go into a coma, but that's what happens to my characters. He falls into a coma. And some things notice his body is uninhabited.
Oh.
Yeah. Dude, that's a good teaser.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
I'm totally reading this book. But in the daylight.
Yeah.
You don't like to get scared? I love being scared at night. It's just thrilling.
Well, and we're calling it a supernatural thriller because, of course, today's horror has a lot of gore and blood, and whereas this does not.
Oh,
it is very much suspenseful, and you might be wary of shadows.
Ooh. So how did you get this passion of writing going? So I met you and you had already written this book, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I wrote this. Well, this came out actually from COVID. During COVID, I started writing.
And what was the motivation? You just had a story in your head, or?
Well, so I've always written books, or I've always loved writing. I wrote my first child's book when I was quite young and illustrated it myself, and yeah, so I've always loved to write. But it's funny because now when I go back and look at my short stories, I see things like, oh, the nightmare on whatever street, or oh, the haunted house. So, and I do think it's because I grew up in a haunted house that I have this fascination with ghosts and paranormal.
So it was planted early, this like awareness that there might be some energies out there.
Yeah.
Can we talk about your haunted house thing?
Of course we can talk about it.
I don't know if you want me to talk about this. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
So, haunted house. Is it because you're in tune to like the energies around that it was haunted, or was it always haunted?
Well, I think it was always haunted because I remember it happening from a very young age. Although I did have a psychic tell me I'm like a big bright light to ghosts, that I am very attracting to ghosts, which is why any roommate that has ever lived with me, I'm sorry, I did make believers out of you. But
really? So can you like tell us what happens around you and stuff?
Well, with where I grew up, it's funny because after we moved out and went on, I went to university, my brother went to his college and all of that. We talked when I think I was 19, and my brother said, "Oh yeah, I saw him." Because I explained this person who I'd see in our house randomly, and when I was 5, I was terrified of him.
Fair,
yeah, because I had no idea who he was. But he would wave at me and make faces, but I was still terrified.
Sixth sense kind of stuff going on.
So anyway, turns out my brother saw him too. We both saw him wearing the same outfit with like suspenders and everything. And we said this in front of my mom, and she said, well, I used to see a shadow person standing at the end of my bed, and I thought I was the only one. And so here, we've all seen him. My dad's a non-believer, even though stuff happens around him. Although his mother told me he had an imaginary friend when he was little, so...
Ghost.
Yeah, I think it was a ghost. But yeah, so it turns out the ghost's name is Godfred. He was a brother who lived in the house before we moved in, and he died.
And did that actually happen?
Yeah, his name's Godfred. I went and visited his grave.
Shut the front door.
No, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So you were kind of seeing things move, or just a body?
Well, so I did see him when I was younger. And then as I got older, I stopped seeing him as a person. I started instead seeing like shadows, hearing tapping on the mirror. And I was just thinking about it for my podcast because What's
the name of your podcast?
Okay, so my podcast is Paraghoul Paranormal, Discoveries from the Dark.
Da-da-da.
So I talk about my paranormal experiences. I have guests on the show with paranormal experiences, but we also talk about like urban legends. I also try to go I don't know if I call them paranormal investigations, but I go looking for ghosts.
I've been trying to convince her to go on a little tour. I saw this like video that had all these abandoned farms in Saskatchewan. It's like, Keely.
The Ghost Town Trail.
Yes. And I was like, we should go.
Yes. Well, and I was given her leave the other day because I was at the Wascana Rehab Center with my mom, and the nurse there told me that the children's ward is, like the children's area of the Wascana Rehab is haunted, and balls will roll across the floor, and some nurses refuse to work there. So check it out, Keely.
Ooh. Do you like when you go on a tour like that? Like, I go deep and I love that sort of stuff too. Like, I've read my fair share of like, you know, stories like that. Do you bring like anything to like monitor like the static in the room, or like do you do it scientifically?
I haven't bought anything like that. Yeah, I do have a digital recorder I always take with me, and then of course we always take video cameras with us just in case, because we have caught some stuff, and I take pictures. So like government house, one of the ghosts knocked and said hello, and my husband was alone, and we couldn't figure out who knocked and where it came from. But we have that on camera, which is fun. Hopkins dining in Moose Jaw while we were there. I took some pictures in the ladies' bathroom because it's known to be haunted, and I just took them while it was dark with my like regular camera.
On your phone kind of thing?
It was an actual camera, like a Canon. But it's weird because I have 2 photos of nothing, and then in the third photo there's these weird like really bright neon lines all over.
Neat.
So,
dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
I've done some ghost hunt. I went to New Orleans, and they have like lots of like people on, like you go down Bourbon Street and it's like you got ghost tours. So my hubby and we like, I think the tour started at like 10 o'clock at night, and we gotta like go, and they took you to the pub, and they're like, this is the pub where so-and-so sat. Nobody's allowed to sit at that table even anymore. And if you do, things happen. And there's,
I would totally sit at that table.
Oh, and like, did you guys watch like years ago? It was American Horror Story, and they had like a story about New Orleans, and it was where they had like people being tortured in an attic, and it was actually like a real story of. So anyways, that building still exists, and you get to go through it, and people are like, ooh, and it's owned now by Nicolas Cage randomly.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's just like Fort Sand before they tore it down. Supposedly, wasn't it the guy off of Ghostbusters, Dan Aykroyd, supposedly was going to buy it?
Really?
Supposedly? That's a rumor I heard.
They should have done that. Why did they? Well, you know what, though? There was some bad mojo there.
Yeah, there was, I heard.
Yeah, there was. Wow. So you grew up kind of in this, like, open to spiritual, like, what word do I want to use? Like, spirituality, or, like, this, like, another energy? I don't know how to explain it. You just always knew that there was more. Yeah. And you've just walked that life. Yeah. And is that the same as for yourself, Patty? Patricia?
I don't, either way is fine. I don't know that, I definitely not like Keely. Mine more opened up after I had kids. And then things would wake me up, and there was a ghost that would haunt my son every night at 3:00 until I took some holy water and put it in there was a haunted dresser that came from a house, house in Cathedral from my sister-in-law. And a psychic friend told me there's something attached to the dresser. So I put holy water in the dresser, and the first night nothing happened. And like, I'm a really nice person unless I don't get my sleep. And then I turn into this, my inner biatch gets off her list.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Sleep's necessary.
Right. So after about a week, I was mad, and I went in there and I'm like, you need to go. And I had the holy water, and the drawer opened up. The drawer ended up in the middle of the room. My son's only 3, with fully loaded with nothing out of it. But this drawer, this really heavy old drawer, is in the middle of the room, and then my son slept through the night, so go figure, hey?
You left.
Mm-hmm. You can have that story.
You have to come on my podcast and we'll talk about it.
Okay, we can talk about the backyard on your podcast too, but back to you.
I think that the idea of all of these interesting things, if we limit ourselves to just like what people tell us is real or not real, we're missing out on like everything else.
100%.
Yeah.
So, you've grown up with this sense of things. How has that impacted your life and where you are today?
Ooh, that's a big question.
It was. I was like, whoa, I don't know how I thought of such a good one. Sometimes.
Oh, how has it impacted me? Well, of course, when I was younger, I was terrified. And so I would try to block it. I would try to block out the ghosts. Of course, they still came to visit me all the time.
Oh, my God.
Some got mad and would slam cupboards. But I got really good at clearing them out so that they would leave me alone.
Fantastic.
But yeah, once, it's kind of similar to you. Once I had kids and then they started having experiences, I was like, well, I don't want them to feel like I did.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to feel like they can come and talk to me about them.
Did you talk to your parents about them? Because it sounds like you didn't.
I didn't when I was young.
Yeah.
It was like one of those things you just don't talk about, the weird bumps in the night.
Okay.
Leave it alone.
I bet you all were having them too.
Oh, we
which
did.
is
That was the
yes.
funny part. Yeah.
So now you're aware,
Yeah.
and you don't want to do that again. So you're now open with your kids and asking them, like, what's going on.
Oh, yeah, they
the
tell
bumps.
me when they said, oh, well, there's a man standing in my room. And so, okay, well, let's go talk to him and try to get him out of here. So he leaves you alone. And they're sure there's a grumpy old man in our basement right now.
That's so cool.
It's not your husband?
Not well. Sometimes. They keep each other company.
Keely, I think it's so great that you encourage your kids to talk about these things and you don't just tell them, you don't shut them down.
Oh, no.
Because, kids have these experiences openly till around age 5-7 unless we shut them down. So it's so wonderful that you encourage them. Then we don't have to reopen them as adults. They can just stay open and know how to deal with this. So kudos to you.
Yeah. Oh,
Smart mama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome parenting.
Thank you.
So your life has kind of been interesting since having kids too, because you were in the corporate world as well.
Yeah.
And then you kind of shifted from that after having the kiddos, I'm assuming?
Well, yeah. So after the third was born, well, and really COVID was a huge thing too, because, once you realize how unhappy you are in a situation when you can't go out and do things and like distract yourself. And so that's when I started down the path of actually doing the leadership coaching and getting
How did you start that?
That was really a random. I was mad at my corporate role. I was mad at not growing anymore, the typical.
Yes.
And I convinced them to let me take some leadership classes.
Wonderful.
Which
That's smart.
Then built, self-awareness and all of that. And I realized that, okay, corporate world's not for me. Started the coaching path. And now, also being more open to talking about my ghost experiences and talking about paranormal experiences. So that kind of opened that up. And now it's all,
It's a whole new world.
Exactly.
It's all coming together, hey?
Yeah.
I think COVID was really good for a lot of us, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it was long couple, like, I feel terrible for the businesses and the impact financially. Like, that's insane. And lots of people have dealt with a lot of mental issues in their own homes because they're all stuck together. Like, it couldn't have been great.
Yeah.
But it also made us work on things.
Well, yeah, it made you kind of go inward.
Figure it out. And I remember being like, why are we never at home?
Yeah.
Like, before we were never home. We spent so much for that home. And all we did was run around in circles. And our goal was to not be at that home. And now I'm like the opposite. I'm like, if you want me to get out of the house, it better be good. And it better be on my time. So these two ladies, we meet for coffee. We our breakfast every couple of weeks. We've been pretty good about it for the last few months. And it's like our window outside, but it's in like a perfect kind of fitting into our world now and figuring out our new normal. I know we're very much in the same, but we're building our businesses right now, trying to, get clients. We're trying to create like this world that layers into our home world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Work-life
more
harmony,
balance, like I always say.
Yes.
Work-life
So that
harmony.
reminds me of your coaching. So talk about what you coach to people and how that business works.
So that business, it's funny. It's grown a lot and changed a lot because originally it was consulting. And then I remembered that I don't like consulting. So I changed it. So even though it's still called Kulpa Consulting, it's actually coaching. So
what's the difference between consulting?
So consulting, the way I put it is consulting is I do the work. Coaching is you do the work. I just help you.
Yeah, I like that. So
I guide you.
You teach them to fish.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay. So what type of clients do you have, or want to have?
Well, clients, so really anyone that's looking for work-life harmony, I do tend to work with people that are going through transition. So that whether that's a transition in their career, so changing career paths and they don't know where they want to go, trying to find their authentic calling, trying to, figure out something that will fit into their work-life harmony.
Yeah.
I'm big about work-life harmony. So one of my clients was a working mom. She's a director at a corporate job, but she was exhausted at home and wasn't happy at home and didn't have the energy for her kids. So we worked on that. We coached through it and she's in a much better place now. Another client he doesn't have kids. He's married, but doesn't have kids, but he wanted to change jobs into something that felt more fulfilling and satisfying and actually got him excited to get up in the morning. So We
coached him there.
Coached him through that and that transition into a new job. And yeah.
That's
As he
huge.
put it, he goes, "You've made me turn into, like, think differently," is what he said to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear in
Yeah.
letting go. Like COVID for me too. I let go of my corporate job in June of 2021 after COVID Christmas, and and so good for you. I wish I would have had you back then to help me with the fear I was going through.
Yeah.
I feel like you could actually share clients, honestly, because I think people going through changes, if they went to hypnosis, they could maybe open a few doors to get some insight into where their true place should be.
Oh, definitely. And then they should come talk to me about how to get there.
Yeah.
Holy full circle.
Yeah, even just regular hypnosis helps with that, with the anxiety and the confidence, but for sure. Yeah. Awesome.
Very interesting. So let's go back to your book. I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over, but your book makes
Don't
me
we
very
always
excited.
jump all over, though?
This is my squirrels. So tell us about your book. So you told us what it was about. You said that it's getting published in Regina. How did you make that happen? A lot of us would be like, you can't do that in Regina. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I started writing it in 2020, finished it in 2021, I was a member of the Horror Writers Association in the U.S., and I got a mentor through their mentorship program.
Beautiful.
And he helped me kind of go through some of the writing and figuring out, whose story is it really, and how do we portray that? And so he helped me go through some of that.
That's huge.
It's massive, yeah. And he also introduced me to a writer's critique group, which was a whole experience to itself.
Good, bad, or just an experience?
It was a really good experience as a writer, I would say, because it helped me realize that there's going to be a lot of opinions about my book, and I don't necessarily have to listen to any of them.
Oh, good for you.
So that was a really good experience. And I do think it helped me become a better writer and helped me read differently, too, which is a funny way to think about it.
Trained you.
Yeah. Helped me kind of look for different things. So now I know what kind of book I want and what kind of book I don't want a little bit better. So
cool.
Yeah.
So it's at the editors. They're
Yes.
going to clean it up however they want, and then you get it back in your hands.
Yes.
And then what does a person then do with a beautifully edited book?
Well, so I have to go through revision. So I have to go through the edits myself and decide which ones I'm keeping, which ones I'm not.
Oh,
all
that'll
of
take
that
some
stuff.
time.
That'll take some time. So once it goes through that process, I give it back again to my publisher, and then she'll send it to the line editor. So they go through every line and make sure there's punctuation's right and all of that stuff is right. Yeah. So then they'll go through it and then send it back to me again, and then I got to go through it again, and then it'll finally be doing cover design and all of that stuff. So
it's a process.
It is.
Wow.
I never realized. I thought when you publish a book, it's like, oh, I wrote a book, now I can publish it. And it's like, oh God, no. There's a long process after that.
And how do you convince somebody to take that book and work with you? That can't be easy.
Well, it's definitely not easy, especially since because I was trying to go with horror originally, I was trying to work with people in the U.S., of course, because that's where the horror printer presses are and all of that stuff. So it was really hard. It made me think of, if you ever heard of Stephen King say, if you're trying to publish something, get a bigger nail because you're going to have the stack of rejection letters getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So they say get a bigger nail so you can still hang them up. So that's very true. But so then at the beginning of this year, I was just listening to someone on publishing, and they made a comment of, well, if you don't think you can sell at least 10,000 copies, you should self-publish because there's no point in going after a big publisher. And I was like, especially this day and age, it's so much easier to self-publish. So January, I was like, okay, my goal this year is to self-publish my own book. And then, as I'm sure this would be in your alley, the universe was like, okay, here's a small press publisher that will work with you. And it just happened. Synchronicities just
Timing.
Yeah, and your small press publisher also has connections to all the independent bookstores across the province. So good choice, Keely. Yeah.
So your goal is to have your book released for what date?
So currently the date we're saying is September 16th.
September 16th is coming up.
Awesome.
Reason to celebrate.
Is there going to be a party? Or
there will be a book launch. We're going to have a party.
Are you inviting us?
Of course you're invited.
Oh, I'm coming and I'll buy your book and you have to sign it.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you said when you worked with I can't remember which part of it was, the critic, that it made you read books differently. So has that spoiled some of your favorite authors for you?
And what are you doing to read differently, actually?
Yeah.
So you can start guessing endings a lot.
Oh.
Yeah. So you kind of know what's coming. Not always, because some of them are still good at tricking you.
Jodi
Yes.
Picoult, she almost always.
Yes.
I've only ever read one of her books that I figured out the ending.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She does
She's
switch it. Like,
Yeah.
who is it that's
Yeah.
doing that
Yeah,
stuff?
she's good. Yeah, but carry on. Sorry.
Oh, no. And so, yeah. So, like, most fiction novels will have, like, 3 acts. And so now I could be like, oh, we're reached end of Act 1. Oh, we reached end of Act 2. So, yeah, it's funny you start picking up those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's more structured.
Yeah.
You're creating, like, the...
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you'll see things are going really well, and you're like, oh, okay, we're getting to the end of an act here. Something's going to happen. So then as soon as it happens, you're like, yep, saw that coming.
Yeah, it's like when I took Film 101 in university.
Totally, I was
right?
thinking that.
Yeah, it kind of ruined some of the movies for you. Where you're like, oh, this is the denouements.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yes. And you look at it, like the way I remember watching The Shining and 100, and they have the little guy on his, like, bike, and it's like, the film is like the videoer is a character, like, because you can see it's like just creepy watching all these people, and like it made me look at films in an artistic way, kind of like before I never did. That was a hard class, but such a good class.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
So did you take writing classes in university while you were there?
No.
Good.
English was my worst.
It's
class.
hard university
That's
English.
what editors are for.
Yeah, exactly.
ChatGPT.
No, you can tell when someone's written something through ChatGPT. It's not as interesting.
It's very more, it's like technically right.
Furthermore,
Yeah.
la 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 la.
Yeah.
You can tell.
It's very verbose.
Yes.
Yeah, no, so my actual background is science and engineering.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know you did engineering.
I did. I have a master's in civil engineering.
Oh my
You're like
goodness.
the smartest person ever. That's fantastic. But you're the second engineer I know that stopped doing it and is at home now figuring out their own thing.
Yep.
Second one, my age group.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's funny.
I think it's because life is not enjoyable if you don't have balance.
I have a friend who's an engineer / acupuncturist. Go figure.
Oh.
Beautiful.
I know,
So,
right?
like, I think engineers are very smart for 2 reasons. They can look at math and understand it, which I can't. Like, I took calculus 3 times. The third time I passed, and I was like, full on. Like,
did you get a mercy pass the third time?
Oh, no.
Definitely. And I had it was horrible. But, I think engineers can look at that sort of stuff and see it. But to have, like, you have the left and right brain, because it sounds to me like you like to write. You're, like, elegant with the way that you, like, talk about things, and you see things, like, outside of, like, the science of it.
Yeah.
But then you're an engineer and you like that side too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's almost like you're not of this world, Keely.
I wonder why
I
you're
was born
saying
in
that.
pointed ears. My mom always teases me.
May the force be with you. Oh no, sorry, wrong show. Oh, my husband's gonna divorce me now. I messed up Star Trek and Star Wars.
I love all Star Trek, Star Wars, all of that stuff. I tell you, if like aliens came today and they were like, "Do you want to like come with us to our like planet?" As long as I could take my kids and my hubby, I'd be like, "Let's check this out." Like I just think, and we're on the cusp of stuff like that happening.
All
sure,
you have to do is ask. All you have to do is ask.
Take me to a cool planet.
Well, my God, I have another group of friends that we talk every day, and we've been talking about first contact.
Yeah, it's going to
Because
happen.
I'm just going to go there first.
I'm actually re-listening
It's
to
funny.
First Contact book.
And I was just talking to someone about a UFO experience on Saturday, so it's
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah.
Go over there.
So we were talking about first contact, and I've always been afraid of seeing something, right? Like seeing something that's going to totally creep me out. And they're like, "Oh no, they don't come to you that way. It's too hard for them to come to you that way. They'll just show you signs." So I was going to this wise woman's circle this week, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to ask for first contact. So I just said, would someone who is, who's here to help us with being love and, becoming more balanced, come to me. I welcome you to come to me in the car, to the meeting and on the way home. And I would like you to show me a rose to confirm that you're here. So I went to pick up supper on the way before I left town, and I stopped in at a ladies' clothing store next to the restaurant, and I picked up this pink T-shirt, which I don't wear pink, and I picked up this pink T-shirt, and there's this huge rose on it. Then we had someone in the circle spoke about roses. And then the next day I went somewhere else and we had rose essential oil.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
And my daughter Nora Rose and I went to the mall this weekend and we bought a rose shirt.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
We're on the same wavelength.
So it's just, you just ask and they're there. So it's not as scary as we think. And if you're going to go on the ship, it's going to be at night while you're sleeping anyways. So
meditate through it.
Yeah.
I really think it's cool. I watched this TV show. I've said it before. You guys should watch it. It's on YouTube. It's called The Y Files. Okay. You'll love it. It talks about all Atlantis. He goes through and he talks about all of these extraterrestrial stories or ghost stories, Skinwalker Ranch, all of the that sort of stuff. Yeah. And he goes through what people say and then he'll debunk it or not debunk it. And there's comedy in it. He has a little heckle fish that lives in a fishbowl that's kind of funny. But honestly, it's we started watching that show about all of these sort of interesting stories that media doesn't really report on.
Nope.
And all of a sudden, it's been 2 years, and I'm waiting every the week to have the next episode. It's really cool. So check it out.
Keely, where's your podcast? You haven't told us where you can find your podcast.
Well, okay, so it doesn't officially launch until May.
Oh,
which is why you can't find it right now.
Waiting is the hardest part.
But you have a blog.
Yeah. I do.
And we were talking about it already.
But Keely has a blog.
Well, let's talk about your blog, and my blog.
Okay, well,
we all have blogs.
I'm on Substack, and Substack is it means subscription stack. So writers have especially the reporters have a stack, right, of articles. So it's subscription stack, but you don't have to pay. You can pay. Be grateful if you paid. Keely, be happy if you paid. So anyways, I've had my Substack for just over a year. It's called My Weird and Wonderful Life. You can view Substack online or on an app on your phone. And for me, if you have a hard time finding my stack, you can go to sparksofhealing.ca, sign up for my newsletter, which actually signs you up for my Substack. And then I invited Keely, so tell me about yours.
Oh boy, I have so many different blogs. So the the Substack is more about, what do I call it? It's the musings from a mom-legged entrepreneur, because I like talking about mom leg as a thing that we all go through as moms, and how you try to, after you come out of it, you kind of, okay, well, now what?
Yeah.
Who am I now that I have these children and now that they're growing, and what do I do now? So that's what I talk about on that one. But of course, I also have all of my stuff is for the Paranormal Podcast, and the book will all be on kdkulpa.com. because that is where all of that is, and KD Kulpa are all my socials as well. Or you can look up Haunted Saskatchewan, because I did Haunted Saskatchewan blog for a couple of years, where I'd go around and just talk about different haunted locations in Saskatchewan and the history behind it. And I went and visited bushwhackers. I went and visited Howie at the government house through that. So that's how a lot of people find me now, is Haunted Saskatchewan.
That's cool. I've read all the ghost stories of Saskatchewan as well, and those are pretty cool too.
But there's so many more.
Well, we got to get them from you, girl.
You got to get to Europe, and there's so many ghosts there. It's older.
That's history.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are wonderful. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's always wonderful to get together with like-minded souls that like to just chit-chat and have fun. So I appreciate you both immensely, and I appreciate you out there for listening to our weird and wacky conversations. And we hope to see you soon. Take care out there.